Well, I see you've decided to join us. Well, you must consider yourself very brave. Don't just stand there. Take a seat. We'll be starting very shortly. We don't have time to waste after all. Not Queen, lead community manager, dead by daylight. Airdorf, Airdorf Games, founder and game designer.
Do you know what it's like? Living in the dark puddles?
Cricket, communications manager, Monterey Park. Star, communications director, Dread XP. Kate Sánchez. But why though PC, the geek community? Co-founder and editor-in-chief.
Genre of film, but it has the lowest percentage right next to comedy of women behind the scenes.
And now, we introduce your moderator, the Siren of Screams, horror streamer and community manager, the smallest bird.
So let's start, right at the beginning. Cricket, we'll start with you. But what was kind of the first step that you took during development? You get on a project, or you're at the start of a marketing campaign, and you have to figure out kind of what your starting strategy is going to be and what's going to develop from that. What are some of the first steps that you take in order to make sure that it's going to be successful, or what are the kind of things that you do to come up with ideas for that?
Sure. So I think the first thing to do is really understand the type of horror that you're working with. What's the genre? Is it a genre that plays off of like religion, for example? Is it like body horror? Is it Lovecraft horror? What genre is it, and who is attracted inherently to that type of horror, and understand where that community base maybe already resides, who makes up that community space, maybe the age range. And I like to try to select platforms that I think is going to be appropriate for them. Now, taking that and translating it into games, I would also think about what platforms right now are up and coming or very relevant to gamers. And the more that you can hone that in specifically to gamers who complement that genre, and the platforms that gamers are typically, you can really hone in on what places are going to be more meaningful to them.
When you're kind of starting that and you're looking at like what you said the spaces are, so do you usually go to spaces that you've worked in before, or do you try and maybe look for new places?
I'm a big proponent of novelty in marketing and community management, so I'm always going to ask my dev team to let me experiment and let me explore other spaces as well.
And kind of building off of what Cricket is saying, Queen, if you can kind of jump in here, because with your studio, is it kind of similar where they'll let you kind of experiment with what you want, or is it more they have a plan in place, or is it how have you kind of started your plans with them?
So for me, I jumped on Dead by Daylight 8 months into production, which basically means that everything was already out there. So as a new CM, my role was mostly to like come in and get to know the community where they reside already, and where we can actually get some new grounds. The best example is that community was residing under marketing for the longest time, which is not the case anymore. However, when you come in, you're a new CM, you wear millions of hats, okay? You're a player support. You're also a graphic designer. You're also the person who does PR at the time, and you're also doing a little bit of marketing. Um, when you wear all the hats, you have to get some buy-in internally for community management. And honestly, I was in a mode where I was looking at my community and learning how they're actually already working, like what the ecosystem already is. And then I started getting buy in. For example, we did not have a Discord server, an official Discord server, when I joined Dead by Daylight, which was 8 months after release, which was a bit crazy in my mind. And since I got in really late and it was a little bit difficult to get the buy in for the Discord server, I got the okay to go 1 year after, which is so late. And I was left with the choice, okay, what do I do now? I have an amazing server managed by community members that is doing incredible at the moment, or I'm starting a new one. And I decided to go see those amazing community members and see, like, hey, can we have a talk? Let's make this server official if you want to. And then we had this discussion, and the process of, taking over, I don't like to say that, but taking over the server actually went so slow, and we went really, trying to respect the thing that they built up. We always worked in a back-to-back basis, back-to-back discussions. And honestly, like, for me, it was to respect the space that the community was already using, and then thinking about going outside of this. I was also hired as a CM for one Steam game, and now we're on 5 platforms, so it went a little bit nuts. And that server today has, we're closing on into 150 members, 150K members, sorry.
Wow.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
A lot of
Yeah.
people.
It is insane. We just hired someone from the community that is building a bot for us. I really like to, use what the community is already building by themselves, and then, hiring them and getting them on board. I think it's a really good way to build when you come in a little late on the project. So, yeah.
And now I kind of want to switch gears a little bit. But Star, so you started with the Dread collection from the first collection, and it was this thing where it was completely new. It was something that maybe the horror community hadn't seen yet. What was kind of your starting process for that like, because it was something that was so entirely new?
Well, I have to rewind a little bit. I had a kind of a similar experience. Okay, so I'll just get into it. So it wasn't my idea; it was Ted who hired me. But now we kind of consider each other like business partners. So there's only like 2 full-time people at Dread XP, so we're very tiny still. And I give a ton of credit to Ted and like what he's built. So basically, so what Kate was talking about with the film festivals, we're actually funded by a film company. And then they bought, like years ago, a media company called Dread Central, which covered like a lot of movies. And then they asked Ted, it was like, do you want to do games? And Ted's like, absolutely, let me do games. So he did Silent Hill, Resident Evil stuff for a while. And then pandemic happened, and they were like, Ted, what do you want to do? He's like, I want my own website. We're going to start making games because I can't film things right now because of the pandemic. So we started because of COVID. So we are actually something positive that came out of that. And that started in April. And then Ted is like, okay, I'm just going to ask Debs if they want to be part of it. Like, I'd like to hear from Airdorf, like how that conversation went, because Ted hired me the day that the first game came out. I'm like, you want me to market a game that just came out today? Like, ow!
Jump on in.
Yeah, they had no public Discord either. It was all private towards devs. And I heard stories from the devs previously, like Airdorf, about how it was like very different than when I came in. I was like, here's structure, here's organization, here's scheduling, here's like design documents, like stuff like that. So it's like it's good and bad when you have like, it's kind of fun in the beginning when it's all like, oh, we're in this together, just making like weird little horror games, to now where I'm like making it a business. And I will give credit to not only Ted for his amazing patience and letting the developers do what they want, but also like we're also like providing them a service, because it's really interesting, because in most, like, I would say game jams, you just make a game and it's cool and it's fun. But like we're not really a game jam, because we like actually pay our developers and want to make sure we support them. And we give them QA, we give them marketing, we give them like visibility and like all this other stuff besides just money. So we're not just like pushing them out into the cold, like market your own game. So yeah, I'd like to hear from Airdorf like how that conversation was with Ted.
Well, it was on Twitter. I forgot how Ted and I first got into contact, but basically he approached me and he got right to the point. He was like, "Hey, what do you think about a sponsored game jam?" I said, "I like it. We need more of them." And I, like Star said, the big difference between developers who had done it before, like the Haunted PS1 jam, that was a huge bundle that's on itch.io. That was very successful. It got a lot of notoriety. The difference was that DreadXP was actually like contracting developers and paying them for their work. And in the midst of the pandemic, that means a lot, you know. And so I thought it was a great idea, and I gave him some suggestions. I'm not a marketing genius. He asked a lot of questions about what game jams are and how they're structured and stuff, and I gave some answers, and he kind of based it off of that. And really, Ted's vision on the DreadX collection was pretty inspired, and it's led to a really cool experience. I, for one, am extremely proud of the work that I did on Summer Night. Like it's true, we basically finished it in like a week, or I finished it in a week. And the challenge of making a little self-contained experience that was not only going to be in a public game jam, but would be released on Steam for the masses to consume and tear apart and judge was a challenge, but it was pretty dang worthwhile. So not only did I get to have that experience, but I got to network with other indie horror devs, which I'm really interested in. I'm interested in cultivating and strengthening the indie horror community. And then there was, you know, I gave some input on the next one, but honestly, Star's done a terrific job on like the marketing and PR side. I've been watching from the sidelines, and super excited to participate in the next one that I can.
Awesome.
I'm sorry, just really quick. I just want to say super quick that we could not do this without the CEO of that film company trusting me and Ted. He's just like, you want money? Here's money, and he just like just do what you want. And if he was to control us, just like what Not Queen was talking about earlier, how like you worked back and forth with that community, like same thing with us. He's just like, I trust you, do what you want, you know. And if he had come in and be like, no, do this and this, we wouldn't be able to do what we do now. So he's very respectful of the artistic integrity of the developers, as much as me and Ted.
Absolutely.
Okay, sorry, I'm done.
No, that brings up a really good point, because you know not everyone has that you know, that kind of freedom in either the company they work in or the organization that they work for, either because of structure or just tradition, things like that. So what would you guys kind of say to companies that are kind of just sticking to, you know, keeping it close to the chest and not really experimenting, especially when starting out with a new game, not just a horror game, but like just in I know this is a horror panel, so it kind of goes against the grain here, but what would you say to those people who are kind of afraid to jump in and take a risk?
If I can take this one, I would say trust us first. Yes, that meme is gonna get a lot of attention, and it's okay if it's a meme. And we know and we speak the language of our players, and we know what's gonna happen. And sometimes, I don't know, sometimes maybe our engagement's not gonna work as much as we want, but we know the tone, we know what our players want. And it's fun to have fun. Let us have fun. Yeah.
That's a good answer.
I'd like to jump in here and also say that it can be very difficult when a game is your baby and to see it go out in the wild. Not all devs are able to get the really hard feedback from gamers. And I think it's really important when you're a community manager in a communications role to really find that person. Maybe it's your producer. Well, oftentimes for me, it's the producer who can take the good and the bad. Now, another thing that's really important to understand when you're a game developer is it's never as good as the players are saying. The really, really, really great feedback. Oh my God, I love it. I got to have more. And it's never as bad as the worst feedback. I find that the truth and the answer usually lies somewhere in the middle. So I think for developers, don't get discouraged when you're getting hard, scary, or weird feedback. That's just lean in, go with it, and you got to keep pushing forward. The worst thing that you can do is clench up and be afraid to keep experimenting and putting yourself out there.
Awesome, thank you.
And I will. I was
sorry.
going to
Go
say to
ahead.
that point from the journalist piece, we actually have. It's mandatory at our site that you tag creatives, so the studios and stuff like that, in any of the posts if they're positive. If they're not positive, I'm already going to send the review back to the PR studio or to the people who send it to me. I don't need to tag you into that on Twitter and have you deal with that. Like that's the y'all don't got to deal with that. So like what we do on our side is like if it is neutral to positive, studios get tagged and we encourage conversation. If it's negative, we're like, we have a very strict process is that you rate it low. I need you to give me all of the critique and you need to show a pathway forward. And that's just how we're a small site. So we're able to have that oversight and making sure that when our reviews come out of games that they do look that way. And it's very important to us because we're about building a community and you can't just build a community by ripping stuff apart. It doesn't work that way. It's about respect. But for us, it's also translates into how we have our writers interact online as well, at least when it comes to their reviews and their critiques of games that they get. And so that's something I'm at least proud of on our end, and I wish a lot more sites did, to take into account like what community managers are going through, because like we always notice. I mean, and by we, my husband runs the gaming section, so he fields all of the requests for reviews and that kind of stuff. But we always notice when there's like genuine, like when, how do you explain it? You can tell which accounts actually engage with their communities, and you can tell which accounts are gonna go look at that tweet and gonna go look at that review and go look at those things. So I like to keep it in mind that is, I like to treat it as if everything's gonna be that way, because I mean, community managers got a rough job. Like we do it on such a small scale for our community. Like I don't even want to imagine how y'all do so much on the other piece. I at least try to keep it on our site. Like that's our policy. I don't know if that makes sense or connected to things, but that's just what I thought of.
Bless you for doing that. That's awesome.
But that actually, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but that actually makes me want to segue into something else, Kate. We had a conversation about how difficult it is when you're first starting to build your communities, on how it is to kind of break into spaces that are not your immediate spaces. What advice would you give to maybe devs or CMs kind of starting out in that way?
So one of the things that I will say, and a lot of this comes from like, so a little bit about my site. My site's primary goal is to uplift marginalized voices. So the bulk of us are POC, and if we're not POC, we have other marginalized identities within our community, and that's the meat of what we do. And because of that, we do like to work with game studios, comic creators, anything that really highlights that or shows that they care about us. It kind of feels weird to say that, but if I go and look at your game, and I'm thinking, because I also cover games as well, and they're very few and far between, but I do cover games. If I see that you're working with creators of color, like content creators who are BIPOC, or you're going out of your way to expand your community in that way, I'm going to be like, okay, I may not know what this is, but they're obviously trying to get buy-in from people who look like me. And that means that I'm going to be safe in that space. Because even coming from the horror community more generally, a lot of the way horror gets done, it is very white. And it is because of a lot of the lines that have drawn with genre. Everything that isn't white American horror story ends up getting put into foreign. It's why a lot of Latin American stories are Latin American and not like Latino. And because of that, and horror community for me has been the most accepting, but the media we consume isn't.
But because of that, I feel like horror creators need to take note of that and do what they can to actually build out their communities. And that means expanding with the content creators that you're working with, looking at the sites that are covering you. There are so many horror sites out there that have really broad, diverse bases, but they're not necessarily getting they're not getting the shine, right? You can look at things like the Graveyard Sisters, and Scream Boutique, and like these other like podcast people that started as podcasts and moved into sites and now there's so many more podcasters that are getting into streaming horror games. Like, and it just because it was the natural flow of their conversations and their communities. So do some work into saying, okay, does this podcast actually have a Facebook group? Oh yeah, this podcast does have a Facebook group. They do live streams every Friday in this Facebook group of playing this game. Maybe I should reach out to their community to work there. And it's hard because I feel like a lot of horror, when it comes to community building online, is a lot around film, and sometimes it can feel like you don't necessarily know how to get into that piece. But sometimes it just takes like talking to people. Like, actually, like, a really good call out is the Gaily Dreadful. Terry over there is amazing, and it's horror from a queer lens, and he does amazing content. He's also a huge gamer, but like that's not necessarily the first thing you see on his profile. So it would just take like following him, seeing what he's doing, and then like, oh well, maybe I should work with him on, maybe promoting this game or getting something out there. So it's a little bit about getting creative, because a lot of people don't necessarily wear horror games on their sleeve. This feels like a ramble, but it's important because, like, for me, because I've been in horror for so long, if your community looks very homogenous, I am automatically going to nope out. And that's just from a personal perspective. I will still give your game to my writers to like see if they want to cover it, because we do it ad hoc. Our writers only cover things they're interested in. So if you have trailers and stuff like that, like, share your trailers everywhere. That's what will 9 times out of 10 get a writer invested in what you're doing. But there have been many times where I've just gotten an email from somebody like, hey, Kate, I saw you tweeting about this. We're mutuals. I have this game coming out, or I have this comic coming out. I'd really love some coverage. Here's our mission statement. Here are our assets. See what you can do. And most of the time, if there's that personal connection, or they've let me know that they like what my community does, I'm going to put that extra push behind, either for my writers to pick it up, or I will just pick it up myself, because somebody has shown that they want to invest in my community, and that right away, I'm going to want to invest in them as well.
And so I've been involved with the Dreadx Discord, and something that I really enjoy about your guys' Discord is how welcoming it is to horror content creators, not just developers, but up and coming developers, people with just these starting ideas, people with just a scratch on a paper. Kind of how do you do that? What are the steps that you take to make it so welcoming and so broad?
Oh man, so this really touches my heart, so sorry if I get emotional, but I've been in this industry for almost a decade, and all I wanted was a job that I could help developers, but not just like bigger developers who, have notoriety and like opportunities, but smaller developers too. And then also, obviously, like Patrick, the CEO of that film company, and then Ted, we all had this conversation when we started. We're like, we need diversity. That is, so I've asked so many developers, that's why I want to talk to you, Kate. Please send me these horror developers. Like, I'm looking for diversity. I'm looking for women. And our next collection, like, it's gonna have more of that, but it's just not enough. Like, I want more. Like, I want more of this so much. So this is a huge focus of us, because with our business model, we are able to have them not just like here's our game, you work for our game and like our vision. They get to make their own vision, and then they get to work within those parameters that we give them. So oh my goodness, I'm just so excited for like what we're going to do next, and giving these opportunities to so many developers. And we are looking for you if you are a diverse developer, if you do indie, because also what Kate said, I'm hunting, I'm looking for them, and they don't wear it on their sleeve. I'm looking at their Twitters and their I go to like, was it Black Game Devs? Somebody did this website, and I'm like looking through this website, and I'm like, you know, and horror community is not as how do I say this? It doesn't have like an umbrella in it like some other genres do. So, like I went to Steam and there's no like genre for horror. It's like a subgenre when you tag games on Steam, and I'm like, where's my main genre of horror? You look at the games that win awards, and even in Hollywood has this too, where Get Out was like a phenomenon, and I'm like, yes, horror movie, like Hereditary, hello, Midsummer, hello, like oh, sorry, I'm distracted by your cat. Not
Oh,
quite.
yeah.
So
Welcome back,
fluffy.
Katie.
Yes. So yeah, it's just like I'm not okay. So here's what we're trying to do at JetXP. Sorry for I'm just being a little emotional right now because I just released a game and I really care about diversity in the game industry, and where I'm able to have a like an incubator to be able to help them. So this is like super exciting for me. But yeah, getting these developers, and thank you Airdorf so much for joining us, because of its developers like you, Daniel Mullins, who did Pony Island, Steve Gabriel did Sally Faze, David Szymanski, who did Dusk. Like, if you bigger developers join us, it only elevates the smaller developers. And they're like, we get to see like Torvald Duke and Chromatose Dev, Akabaka, like them make their games, and then you're helping them. So it's like you're making your own game, but you're also helping other developers at the same time. So it's like all positives. And at the same time,
happy to do it.
thank you. I want to elevate all of indie horror to showcase that, yes, we are here, we're artistic, we're experimental, it's exciting, and if you're looking for that kind of like new experience besides Resident like Evil and Silent Hill, like we have them here, and not just from Japan or America, from like all over the world.
And I do want to say too, like one of the things, and I was just thinking about it as you were talking, sometimes communities just become homogenous because they do, and there's really no, like, you don't know how it happened, it just kind of did. So I get asked at our site a lot to kind of like consult and like help people, like, how do we make our site diverse like yours? I'm like, it happened. It just happened, and it happened because we made a welcoming space right off the bat. And it, I mean, also happened because I'm a brown woman, so I mean, it obvious, like, our leadership is brown and black for the most part, so it's kind of like we're obviously going to cultivate a more diverse space just by being that. But if you're not in that position, it can be very hard to kind of branch out. And the easiest question to ask yourself is, why is my community this way? Like, there is a reason why it is, even if it just happened. So like, do I need to start empowering more people outside of this? Do I need to start working with different creators? Do I need to start putting out different calls? Do I need to start doing different community spotlights? Because nothing is ever going to be 100% homogenous. But a lot of the times, if somebody goes to something, it's like, oh, well, none of these people look like me, I'm just gonna go. Sometimes it helps to highlight people in your community who can show that it isn't that homogenous, and then slowly it'll start changing. But it does take a lot of active, like, it takes a lot of one, the desire to do that, and two, trying to find out what aspects of my community have made it be 90% this or 90% that. And that's the easiest. That's easy. I use that in quotations. It's not easy, but that's kind of like the easiest starter for how you can start diversifying a platform or a game community and a community in general, is just by asking that question.
I think a really good point here also to add, Kate, if you don't mind, because it was so well put, is it's not on people of color or diverse communities to come to you. You need to be fostering that, and you need to be inviting them. That's part of the developer's responsibility, to go out and seek that.
Yeah. I don't want to name them, but I worked with I do a lot of work with a few horror platforms, and one of them had an all native show coming out, and they were like, hey, I looked at my list of contacts that I just sent this PR blast out to, and there are not that many POC. Can you please, like, if you have people that you know in your space who love covering Indigenous stories, or who just are who can help me diversify this list, send them my way. I've had that happen with multiple people where they've just been like, hey, we did launch this thing, this was our mistake, but we want to rectify this. Who can I help get a code to? Who can I help, get a screener to? And honestly, I have way more respect for somebody who comes to me as a journalist and is like, yo, I made this mistake, this is our blind spot, help me rectify it, than somebody who just says, like, this isn't, oh, that happened. We just went for the best creators. It was a meritocracy. It's like you had a blind spot. It's fine. Lead with your blind spot and fix it. So
Awesome. Thank you so much,
I
Kate,
have
for that.
suggestions on how a dev team can implement this as well.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is something that we've been talking about this I think a lot on Twitter recently. Mentoring. It's too late when you're gonna launch to start mentoring. Mentor. You have to build that into a routine in your workplace. The games industry is notorious for not wanting to take the time to teach and to mentor people. Internships, mentoring, and hire with the understanding that you are going to be coaching people and training them up into those positions. Representation matters, and it is our responsibility to make sure that we are putting a diverse selection of developers in those leadership positions, and we are helping them get there, because right now systemically they're being blocked out of those positions, or we're scaring them away from our industry spaces. So you have to intentionally build that into your routine processes at work.
I kind of want to throw this question out to Airdorf and Queen specifically. How do you kind of structure branding for yourself? Is it kind of just throw anything at the wall and see what sticks? Do you have kind of a process that you go through, or is it more just race against the clock?
Sure. Well, I lied. It's actually not just me. My publisher is New Blood Interactive, who they're pretty dang phenomenal when it comes to marketing and PR for their games. They have a branding that is right in line with like how I want to do my branding. They're all about the memes. They're not afraid if their games or portions of their games become memes, because that's I think someone was saying earlier, that's kind of the language of a lot of communities. And they are all about the individual developer, not just the product. So I have felt elevated as a still relatively smaller indie dev since I partnered with New Blood on publishing Faith of the Unholy Trinity. For myself, I pretty much live on Twitter. Just ask Mrs. Airdorf; she'll tell you all about that. But I tried Facebook for a while. They make you pay for exposure basically, and Twitter sort of does that with like sponsored posts, but I haven't noticed that as much. I want to be the brand that I am searching for is a developer who is personable and approachable. So I made a commitment early on in like my run on Twitter to keep my DMs open no matter what, and so far that hasn't backfired on me.
Woo.
And in fact, there were times like after for example, mass shootings and when this pandemic started getting started kind of, when we all started realizing that it wasn't gonna last just a couple of weeks, and it was affecting our psyches, and other events in the past 4 years, it's been affecting people emotionally. And I've made posts where I say, look, if any of y'all need to talk, or if you need someone to talk to, my DMs are open, I'll listen. And a lot of people take me up on that statement whenever I post, but I haven't regretted it. I've gotten a few trolls, and but honestly, it's mostly people in the horror community that just want to ask me a question or have an issue, or just want to rant about something and talk to them. So for one, I love Twitter because it minimizes the distance between people and other people. Like, people can communicate straight to me on Twitter, and that's what I really like about it. So I want to be seen as someone who one can approach and talk to, and a developer that my fans and my players and other members of the horror community can have access to. That's been a huge component of my success with connecting with content creators and influencers to kind of get the word out about my games and kind of get attention on it. Another thing that I do is I try to cultivate friendships with influencers and content creators online. So when it comes time to ask them for favors, like, hey, can I get a retweet on this? Or, hey, here's a Steam key I'd really love for if you streamed or played my game. I try to genuinely, don't be fake about this if you ever try it, because they'll tell. I mean, they can tell. is to just genuinely like ask how they're doing. Like every once in a while, I will reach out to a streamer, or I will reach out to a YouTuber who, you know, and I just ask them, hey, how are you doing in the Corona reality that we're living in? Like, are you staying sane? Like, how's things? And we carry on a conversation. There's a Twitch streamer named GoTeasy that I've become really close friends with, and we've never even met before, but he's really great guy, really great content creator. And the way that we created this relationship was just asking each other how our days went. And so I think, especially during this pandemic, and especially in the current climate, there needs to be an element of friendship. You get people who have a hard time handling the attention of having a personable relationship with someone they admire, and so you just be patient with them and you try to be their friend anyway. So maybe someday that'll bite me in the ass, you know, and I'll be way too friendly and I'll be like, DM's still open, and then 2,000 DMs that are just a bunch of trolls. But it hasn't happened to me yet. Kind of like what Kate was saying, that the horror community is very accepting and is very friendly, and I'm very happy to be proud of it.
And now I kind of want to throw the question to Queen as well. So you said you started kind of in the middle, and you must have had maybe a little bit of an established brand, but how did you kind of work with that or work off of it, or in that way?
Yeah, so here's the thing. I really love your approach, Airdorf. I think it's really, really great. And I started like that as well, like really open and having these discussions with the community, direct discussions. And when you say you're scared that one day it's gonna bite you in the ass, that's what happened to me.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, so here's the thing. I got hired. We had about like 6K CCU every day on the game, which was the average. It was on Steam only. Everything was kind of like, it was a small-ish game. We were doing good. And then we released on console, and now we have like over 1 million players daily. It is freaking insane, and the word I learned is scalability. There is some things I cannot do. As the lead CM, I cannot answer DMs. I can't do that. If you look at my DMs on Twitter, they are, on Discord, they are open, but I have 15,000 of them that I cannot look at.
Yeah.
It's really about scalability, and anything that you can think for the future, like, will that be sustainable later? Will I need someone else to take care of this later? Is this program going to be taking too much of my time? Can I template some stuff? Like, when I engage with my community, can I create templates that are going to get me like that really quick asset that I can get really, really quickly out to have that fun interaction without spending too much time on stuff every day? So it's all about like looking at the big picture. Now, it was difficult, and I was alone for a long time on the project, and now there's 15 of us. Obviously, it's crazy, and you think, oh, 15 of you, you're all good to answer everything. Hell no, we're not. Scalability is the best thing that you can think. Project yourself in the future and project yourself in the future for, like, winning. I mean, you're doing good, the game grows, and you have to handle your community still. And then you have to think about, where do you talk to them, and who are you targeting with your discussions? So we know for a fact that our more expert players will mostly like stay on, like forums and Reddit and like those really. So we're gonna create those communication for these guys. So when we have to, and the more fun thing is going to be mostly on, so social media. It's going to be a more casual crowd. It's super fun. I like the see what sticks strategy, because there's always a big majority that is silent in your communities. And sometimes you'd be surprised about things that actually work, and you're like, how does this work? Well, that silent majority just woke up because you're like, hey, you did that lore post, that one time, and they all went crazy for it because they love it. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm learning new things about my community. I thought, let's just try this and see if it works. And ultimately, oh, okay, they super love lore. I'm saying that because ultimately at the beginning, Dead by Daylight's lore was super short. There was not a lot. And since we added a new thing that's called the archives, that's where you unlock challenges that unlocks bits of lore. And so now we can use that a little bit more with our community, and it's super fun. And we realize like how much people love that. However, it's still new for us. And when it comes to branding, so it's been a really difficult time for the community management team. Being under marketing is a very different approach. You have to really try to explain to the marketing guys, like, hey, this is community, this is a little bit different, the way we're talking to people, the tone we're taking, we're not, just trickling down information. This has to be like a little bit closer to our players. And one of my favorite campaign was definitely the so when we released Stranger Things, we also had a cosmetic for Steve that was the Scoop Boys cosmetic. And our marketing team had this elaborate fancy 3D thing to showcase the outfit, and we were like, hey, how about we drop in him a locker with one outfit and he goes out with another one, and he's just like, yeah, here I am. And that was one of the things that actually, like, Netflix went nuts about it. They were like, hey, we want to share this is super fun. And this is one, at the time, one of our engagement that actually got the most, feedback, and people were super hyped with it. And it was so simple, and sometimes not going with the, the fancy thing, and just trying to aim your communication to your community when you know what they want. And that's the most important thing, I think.
Yeah, what's that phrase? It's like, keep it simple, stupid, or something like that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Something like that methodology.
Yeah, we do both. We keep it simple and stupid sometimes. Otherwise, it's not fun, One of our latest thing that worked the most was just retweeting a meme made by someone in the community, and people went crazy on it. So yeah, otherwise, I really like very big campaigns that are, a little bit like just to have fun, like the Discord campaign for their 200,000 followers. It was just like, hey, here's a rock with 200,000 written on it. Like, you can win the rock if you like and retweet. That's it. That was it. It was just as simple as that, and it got so much traction. And I thought that's the kind of thing I'm looking at. We're in games. We need to have fun.
But I'm gonna go ahead and just open the floor. I think we have about 5 minutes left. If anybody just has any last thoughts or things they want to add, the floor is open.
So my main thing is, we want to cover games as journalists, as outlets, especially the smaller ones, especially to be frank, if you are an outlet that consists of majority marginalized folks, we literally have to work 2 or 3 times as harder as other outlets. It's just how it is. It's how I've known everything to be. It's how everything has been. Access is extremely hard for us. Getting people to pay attention to us is really hard, even when we have analytics that match some of the other sites. But because we look a little bit different, a lot of the times we don't get prioritized, or I get said that I don't have a lot of engagement on my Twitter, or, stuff like that. It's just what happens. It's implicit biases that a lot of people need to get over, but what you can do as a community manager, as a dev, as a marketing manager, as a PR person, whatever, whoever's listening to this, find who we are, send us your stuff, even if it's just us posting a press release, even if it's just us making that initial connection. We want to work with people. We want to highlight great games. We want to know that you want to broaden your community and that you see value in us. So reach out to sites like mine, and it doesn't have to be mine. Reach out to other sites. Reach out to sites that have value, or you can see having value, and we'll bring that value to you. So never be afraid about reaching out to a site. Seriously, like, half the time, like I said, especially if they're a marginalized group, we're already hustling hard to get any sort of attention. So send some our way. We'll take care of you too. You can find me on Twitter at ohmymythrandier, and you can find But Why Though at But Why Though PC on everything social media.
Not Clean was talking about sharing a meme that someone in the community had posted, and like, being the facilitator of sharing fan created content, I think, is also really important. And an idea that Dave had at New Blood when we were ramping up for PAX East was to do the Faith fan art contest, and that was hugely successful. I'm always looking into like overlapping with other communities, like the art communities, like Trevor Henderson and other artists are some that have like expressed interest in my work and me with them, and so there's been a lot of overlap. And having the fan art contest and then making it a paid fan art contest was a big deal because it rewarded creators who wanted to make fan art on the Faith series, and it also created a lot of overlap. So because of the contest and because of the rewards, but also because it was a game they were passionate about, there's a lot of overlap and a lot of exposure to the game in the artist communities, and so it helped everyone. And then they got to be, we had posters made and they were shown at PAX East, and we also got PAX East attendees to vote on which artwork they thought was their favorite. So involving the community like that and like exciting stuff like that is something that I'm interested in doing in the future. I did like a design your own demon contest when I did chapter 2, but I kind of went about it the wrong way, and I want to try again sometime with something similar.
And you know what's crazy? That's the exact thing about scalability. Okay,
That's right.
You have amazing content about your game or about your work out there, and people love your stuff. Show it to other people, and then on your side, you can be alone on the project, and it's still easy to hit that retweet, tell the person like, hey, by the way, I'm retweeting you, nice job, it's super cool. It always makes people go nuts. They're super happy, and also it's great content. Hell, like
Yeah.
they are amazing. We have a crazy community of cosplayers,
Oh yeah.
artworks, and we would be insane to not reshare that kind of thing.
And that kind of makes me wonder, and this is for Star specifically, because you have 10 games in one. How do you kind
12
of
now.
12 now, and so how do you
Yeah.
kind of handle the content, the different kind of content that comes out of your community, because it's so varied. It's not like one specific art style genre.
I'm so sorry. I just want to say it has been incredibly more difficult because I have to do 12 descriptions. I have to do like 12 different screenshots, GIFs, videos. Our trailer was a headache to do. So we were trying to put all these logos into our key art. It was an incredible challenge to do all these things, much more so than just making one game. Something I didn't anticipate. I was like, oh yeah, I know marketing. I know how to do this, da-da-da-da. But then I came across this problem that like no one else has really come across. It wasn't something I realized because I'd never had this problem before.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you know what? We pulled through. Like the artist I worked with, the person who made the trailer with us, like everyone was so professional and so wonderful. And I was like, Ted, like, how do we do this? He's like, I'm just lucky, like it just thinks, yeah, of course it happened because I'm just so lucky. Of course everyone's going to do a great job. And I'm like, you don't understand.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we do have to wrap up. I do want to continue this conversation. Maybe we do Home to Horror Part 2 somewhere down the line. I would
down.
love it if you guys are down.
Let's do it.
But we do have to wrap up, so if everybody just wants to sign off, let people know where they can find you, starting with Airdorf.
Oh, sure. Twitter at Airdorf. Pretty simple. Don't even bother going to my Facebook. And I have a YouTube channel, and then the New Blood Interactive public Discord is where you will find the official Faith community Discord.
Awesome. Cricket?
I'm going to be Twitter at Foxygen_Prime. Foxygen, Foxygen. I'm also on Twitch. I like to also stream horror games and a variety of other games, and that's also going to be Foxygen_Prime.
Awesome. Thank you. Queen?
All right, so I'm not Queen, so on Twitter, not Queen, so not __ Queen. Yes, I know, it sucks. So grab your names while you're at it. And on Twitch as well. I restarted streaming after like a whole year hiatus today. So on Twitch, not _ Queen.
Awesome. And Star?
I'm Starlight Skies. It's Starlight and then SKYES. but I'd rather you follow DreadXP on Twitter. So it's DreadXP with an underscore as well, because like what Queen said, it's hard to get your names on Twitter.
Yeah. And I am the Smallest Burb. You can find me on Twitch, the Smallest Burb. Thank you so much to our wonderful group of panelists. Thank you guys so much for coming together last minute and doing this. And you can find this on PAX Online, which is where this will premiere. And I hope to have a part 2 soon. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I will see you all soon.